Welcome everyone to Teachers of Tomorrow. This is the first in a series of webinars that the Better India is hosting in association with Dell Aarambh. We are here today to talk about how the entire landscape of education is seeing this incredible transformation thanks to the implementation of technology and digital learning tools, digital learning platforms. So if we think about it, everything from K-12 education, teaching kids with disabilities, mentorship, teacher training, EdTech platforms are just changing how we look at learning in the longer run. They're changing how we look at learning now also. They're completely changing the status quo. And that's what we want to discuss today. And for that, I am in conversation with experts who are already there on the ground, creating impact each and every day. These are visionaries, these are tech experts, educationists, and everyone that can share their knowledge with us and help us learn so much more from them. So I'll quickly introduce our panelists to you guys before we move forward with this. So we have Ritu Gupta. Ritu is the Director of Marketing at Dell Aarambh, a PC for Education initiative which has impacted hundreds of teachers and students. She has over 20 years of experience across various marketing functions such as consumer insights, brand management, product management, new product development, and innovation. Thank you so much for joining us, Ritu.
Thank you.
We also have Sandeep Rai. Sandeep is the Chief of City Operations at Teach for India, who has led the creation and implementation of TFI's first institute. His experience in a classroom as the Teach for America core member deepened his resolve to contribute to educational reforms in India. He has a master's degree in international affairs and economic policy from Columbia University, New York. Thank you, Sandeep, for joining us. We also have Chitra Ravi. Chitra is the founder of Chrysalis, a leading education research and innovation organization whose fundamental goal is to challenge and reform the existing educational system in the country. They have introduced think rooms in more than 1,000 schools, creating environments in which students can unlock their full potential. Thank you so much, Chitra, for joining us. We also have Rahul Kulkarni. Rahul is the founder of Do Now, an early stage social startup with a focus on mentorship using technology to make expert mentorship available to everyone who needs it. Rahul is a product expert, a TEDx speaker, and an engineer from Georgia Tech with 9 patents in his name. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
Also have Jairaj. Jairaj Bhattacharya is the founder of Conway Genius, a social enterprise dedicated to bridging learning gaps through technology and innovation. By providing low-cost and affordable tech solutions, his goal is to create an impact in the lives of students from low-income and middle-income backgrounds. Thank you everyone for joining me. I know I have rushed through the introduction, but we have also been introducing ourselves, and I really want to jump into the questions that I have for you guys today, because there's so much to learn, there's so much new to talk about, current scenario, there are new policies, there are new developments. I'll just set a bunch of rules for the participants who have joined us. Please do leave your questions for us in the Q&A box. You can always say hi to us in the chat section, but please do leave questions in the Q&A box. We'll be picking up questions from there at the end of this session. So I'll jump right into this. We'll jump with the introduction to efforts in digital learning and transformation. And Ritu, will begin by with you by requesting you to also tell us a bit more about Dell Aarambh, and also talk about how Dell Aarambh has a vision of computer literacy and PC learning, and what is Dell Aarambh doing to create like an enabling environment for teachers and students.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for the question. So Aarambh, as the name suggests, is Hindi. It means a beginning, right? And this really program started about 4.5 years back. So we have been doing school contact programs for a fairly long time now, and our learnings through a lot of those years of contacting schools and teachers and students has been that in a lot of places, tier 1 towns, and particularly in the tier 2, tier 3 towns, there is a sense of hesitation, and there was a sense of hesitation in terms of adopting and using technology. And when we started dwelling more, we realized that while technology is very, very useful for a child, because it does allow, it's a medium that enables and allows you to have a very interactive style of learning, as against a rote mechanism or something that you just kind of mug up and put it out there in the paper to get your scores and your grades. But for a child to be able to use technology, the two key, the two key influencers or the two key pillars in the early stage of a student or a child's life, which is the teacher in school and invariably the mother at home, both of them were not very familiar with technology, and this hesitance of using technology was very, very deep rooted. So we said that in order for us to be able to enable more and more children in school to use technology, we definitely need to connect the dots with this, what I call as the golden triangle. So the teacher and the mother, and we have to be able to equip and empower them to with the right technology, with the right technical aids for them to be able to use that in a manner that they can not only make their classes more interactive in school and make education and learning a fun process, but also at the same time do the same thing at home when the mother is helping the child learn. So that really is how the genesis of Aarambh as a program started. And over the course of I would say a little over 4 years, we have been able to reach out and train and retrain over 80,000 teachers across 4,000 schools spread over some 79 plus cities, as well as a little over a lakh 20 mothers, all with an objective of making sure that they are equipped with the right technical aid, with the right technical tools, with the right technology, and that intrinsic fear of being able to use technology is overcome, so that when they are using technology in their classrooms or using technology for better dissemination of knowledge in school as well as at home, uh, in that process we are also making sure that the child is becoming familiar with technology, thus preparing them for for an economy which is going to be more digitally oriented going forward. So that has really been our vision on the program Aarambh. And obviously as time evolved, we kind of needed to change and adapt and go along. So particularly when when last couple of months when we had the lockdown happening and we were unable to do those trainings in school, we have been able to adapt and make those into webinar sessions conducted for the schools, once again to make sure that those teachers and the parents were able to reach out to them. And now more than ever is the need for technology in the space of education, both for learning as well as for disseminating it.
Yeah, for sure, Ritu. The point that you bring up about parents and how their involvement is so necessary is so interesting, and we'll come to more of that also. Chitra, I wanted to ask you, with this transition to digital learning, we now have like a huge opportunity to rethink and redesign learning. So, from your experience, what are some of the ongoing changes in the K-8 education system, and what are some of those changes that you would really, really love to see being implemented and implement yourself as well?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Tanya. I think, yeah, the COVID has really thrown the biggest challenge to schools and education system at large, to parents,
Yeah.
teachers. But I can't but admire the way teachers have really, really, kind of managed to not see this as a stumbling block, but put all their passion and cross the bridge, like, with Elon. Having said that, yes, there are many, many problems with this remote learning, because one is just not about the mindset, but also about access, equity, and all the debates that we've been having. And also is the pedagogy and the way we are teaching, the teaching learning. Is it even suitable for this sudden shift, right? So that needs a lot more thinking and rigor in the way it needs to come out, because we cannot have what was happening. I mean, while we can question even the rote and all that was happening or is still happening in the school and classroom scenario, when we have this big challenge now, we should not be just letting the same problems surface across the devices, right? So that's the biggest thing. So is pedagogy, and I'm saying this because Chrysalis has been working in educational research and innovative pedagogies that help not only achieve learning outcomes, but also in the formative years help track and achieve developmental outcomes for children. I'm making a distinction between these two because while learning outcomes are about all that we talk about in terms of numeracy, literacy, and all the cognitive aspects, there are many more like the socio-emotional and other aspects that are so critical for the child in these formative years. So now, I mean, are we ready with that? No. But is this universe conspiring, though thrones a big challenge, is this an opportunity for us to converge, diverge, and, bring a lot of ideas so that we start looking at the nuances? And I think we have brilliant tech minds and technology. I don't think there is any lacuna in that. The problem has been these are two isolated things, right? Right now, the technology and even the many edtech firms that we are seeing, they are racing to solve problems through tech, while many are, identifying and solving problems through teaching learning. So there needs to be this catharsis and this I would say synergy that is required, and that is what organizations like us are seeing as a big opportunity. And if that happens, I'm sure we can not only solve problems at micro levels, but then that can also be scaled. I mean, I might be saying it like it's a cakewalk. We all know it's not, but even articulating that and getting minds together, it's so nice to see a very diverse panel here, and each one of them brings so much of expertise. So these are the things I think we should be looking at. There's a need for change in assessment, there's a need for change in curriculum, pedagogy, and I think this is the opportunity on how we can leverage through collaboration and through I should congratulate Ritu on the focus that Dell Aarambh has put into education, and rightly by placing in the stakeholders' hands the power of technology. So I think now the thing is, how do I make it meaningful, and how do I ensure that children are not lost, in the devices, or I think there's a lot of work to be done there. But I mean, I don't know if I have more time, but maybe later we can also speak a little more in detail about that.
Definitely. Two things that stand out: one, not a cakewalk, and two, also coming out as a common answer is, and to everyone in this field that I've spoken to, is the training aspect, the difficulty of crossing that screen. And that, like, I have not even begun to imagine how that is, Jairaj, for, if I bring this to you, the shift of digital education to impact students with disabilities. Students with learning disabilities was something that was already challenging, and now to come to a digital, but also so many opportunities to take digital learning. How does that impact your work, and how are you seeing it affecting education for children with disabilities?
Thanks, Tanaya. Thanks for giving this opportunity. And I'd like to briefly introduce my work that I've been doing for the last 6 years in Convegenius. So Convegenius has been focusing on personalizing and adaptive learning experiences using technology to the last mile at the bottom of the pyramid. So we focus on the bottom 100 million children, which are primarily government schools and budget private school students, budget private schools with school fees of less than 1,000 rupees. So this segment was completely dependent on ICT infrastructure earlier in the classroom. With COVID happening, all of a sudden you don't have classrooms to go to, right, and access technology. Now what happens? You rely at home, whatever digital device, the last mile delivery that you can provide to the child is through the parent's mobile device. Now there are multiple issues there, right? The mobile device might be a smartphone, might not be a smartphone. It might just be a Nokia Symbian OS, or it could be just a neighbor's phone you can get access to for some amount of time. So there's a problem of inequity, not just at the level of learning in terms of learning disabilities, or in terms of the inequity in how the child is, but also what the child has today, what access they have in terms of device. So given we are working on that construct where right to education has to be for everyone, right, equally accessible, we need to first try and solve for the problems that could be solved for. So for us, it was about how do we automate the basic and the most basic thing, that is assessments, right? Knowing what the child's learning levels are, and based on that, providing them a personalized weekly learning video or an audio or whatever. So we started out with doing a very basic AI-enabled assessment, formative in nature, that weekly learning goals would be provided, and based on these learning goals, we collect data, formative data, and which tell us about the strengths and weaknesses of the child, and based on that, we tag existing available content on YouTube, free resources being provided by multiple companies like Khan Academy, Tic Tac Learn, and provide them as bite-sized remediation for the gaps. This is how we started responding to COVID. So there, what we figured out is, a couple of things, right? One, essentially, is that one smartphone might be used not just by their own children, but their neighbors' children. When we launched a multiple profile kind of a interface where you could log in through the same WhatsApp to multiple profiles, we saw doubling of numbers. We saw access increase significantly. The second insight that we got was voice as an interface can also be explored, not just text or WhatsApp. So voice, AI on voice is going to be a thing for parents who do not have access to smartphones. Meaning that you can just use the same number by calling them up and talking to an AI bot. That would also solve for a lot of the problems that we are facing. So coming to your question, right, in terms of learning disabilities and in terms of the different kind of children and how do we personalize? The answer is to think personalization based on learning styles and learning pace, both. So learning styles, I mean, some are visual learners, some learn through audio feedback, and some could be just kinesthetic learners, right? They like to play games. So technology provides us with the opportunity to provide different learners with different kinds of learning aids. And we personalize that based on the data, right? And so for someone who has a problem to learn visually, we could offer them voice-based personalization for the same content. The same video could potentially be shown as a voice audio narrative. So there could be consistency in terms of the user journey through multiple platforms. That is what technology offers through personalization.
Yeah, I see that definitely technology offering so many doors and windows to open up and explore. Sandeep, we have spoken about parents. I also wanted to speak to you about teachers, right? So changes in systems of education for students would require changes in how teachers are being equipped with the correct information. So how is the current state of teacher training in India, and how can technology play a larger role in taking it to the next level?
Yeah, first of all, I resonate with so much of what you said, Jayraj, and I've had the opportunity to spend some time with your product and really admire a lot of the work that you all are doing on trying to personalize this. We could probably spend a long time talking about the teacher education and teacher training in the country. Just to give a quick snapshot though, right? Like, I mean, a meta-analysis was done a few years ago, and you have approximately 8.5 million teachers in the system right now, right? Consider that there are about 16,000 institutes that are set up to be able to conduct teacher training, right? And this meta-analysis found that actually out of those 16,000, 15,000 of them are private institutes, right? And so when they tried to dig a little bit deeper, what they actually found was that they are dogged by problems like low seat utilization. They're operating often as degree shops. They're operating with a really low standard of quality. And to underscore that, they actually did an eligibility test, right? So there's a teacher eligibility test that's been passed around. The averages range from 1 to 17%, right? Okay. So that's just a bit of a snapshot of teacher education and what's happening with it today. And I don't think anybody's really cracked it and how to do it at scale. There are a lot of attempts, and that's where technology just holds a lot of promise, right? And I think there's a few potential things that technology can deliver there. Right. One is it has the potential to really just standardize how we think about quality of delivery, right? And if we're able to standardize the quality of delivery for 8.5 million teachers across India, it would be a huge step forward for teacher education. But two is along the way. I mean, a lot of the solutions that these other folks have talked about is going to require us figuring out how to better train teachers to get more comfortable with this. And if we're going to want kids to start using technology, if we want kids to access blended, we've got to figure out how to model that for our teachers. And so there's an opportunity there. And the third, which I think is the biggest, is it just offers exposure to the world around us for teachers that has never been possible before. And so no longer is my learning dependent on what's available in my district or what's available in my most closest community or my school. I can have access to facilitators and teacher trainers from across the world. And that's pretty much, that exposure can be game changing for teachers. And so I think it's those three. I think it's, can we standardize the quality of what teachers get? It's, can we figure out how to expose teachers to the world around them so that they have access to things that were never there before? And three is, in the process, can we model what we want to deliver to kids?
Awesome. I love how when all of you answer, the common thing that comes out is that this is an opportunity and we can just grow from here. I love that vibe on this webinar. Rahul, we'll move to you. I'm so sorry. I just noticed that I had taken the name of the organization wrong. It's Do New. I want to talk to you, Rahul, about mentorship, right? So mentorship, when we think about it, exclusively, it's such a person-to-person thing or such an organic thing. So how does it happen digitally? How does that barrier get broken when you move digital to mentor people?
Yeah, thanks, Tanya, for having me here. So mentorship, as you rightly said, right, is a complex. Over the last 5 years, what we've been doing at Dunyu is running experiments on mentoring, right from corporates to governments to international schools to underprivileged schools, government schools, right? It's a wide variety. It's a spectrum, but fundamental parts of mentoring remain the same. And you see mentoring being done by all the good teachers. Every good teacher does magic. It's almost an art form, I'd say. Now, I'm a diehard technologist, right? 20 years only writing code, building products that are technology. But I'd be the first to admit that technology it can only go so far to do mentoring. And I'll give you some examples of where the boundaries are, at least for today. There are three parts to mentoring, if you roughly take three critical dimensions. One is being there for your mentee, no matter what. And being there in the technology world translates well into, as Sandeep mentioned, right, you suddenly have access to all the teachers in the world. You suddenly have access, you're on your device. So yes, we're not going to school. Yes, we're not there, but the teacher, if the teacher is available on my phone every time I need someone to talk to, isn't that magical? And technology is making that happen. Now the question is it a phone call? Is it WhatsApp? Is it Telegram? Is it an app? Is it a website? It doesn't matter. Technology, it's easy enough to figure out how to democratize that. But essentially, it goes beyond that. Mr. Nilekani recently had a talk at Ashoka where he was talking about a resilient school. And one of the requirements of school is building railroads for all these different disparate components in technology. Where's the UPI equivalent of technology? Today, you can send 5 rupees from any bank to any bank in your bank account in real time. Yeah. That's missing in technology. There are these silos owned by edtech companies that you have to go through only their process and use their entire stack to actually make things happen. The interoperability is missing. So I think being there is an essential part of mentoring, and that can be solved very much with technology. I think it just needs everyone to just be more united and interoperate with each other. The other part to mentoring is understanding the capabilities of your mentee and believing in them. That I would say is really, really hard. Recently, we had a small group of students participating in an Inventure Changemaker contest, and they were from Bhopal. They created a very nice prototype. So one of the things we do is run project-based mentoring. And one of the projects was taking AI and taking a screenshot, like we see here, right? On Zoom, we have all of our faces. And if we took periodic screenshots of this, run it against an AI algorithm to figure out, are we smiling? Are we happy? Are we shocked? Are we bored? Am I sleeping? You can actually, in an instant, get to know what 50 students, are they interested in what you're saying? Are you, is it dead? What's happening? Yeah. And that's the power of technology. Now, that's still only, I would say it stops at a fancy demo. It's useful. I would say it's useful for the Zoom classes, but nothing to beat that in-person interaction with a mentor that says, I believe in you. Don't worry. The world may be against you. I'm there. And good teachers do that. I don't think technology is there yet to be able to say that for sure and really have a face to it. And lastly, there's the guidance piece. At the end of the day, you want to guide people with a whole bunch of collateral, content, direction, advice. And that, as Jairaj rightly mentioned, right? Like they've literally parameterized everything, seeing Jairaj's awesome work on K-12, K-5 education, parameterizing content, looking at, hey, is it a visual learner, audio learner, and so on. That thing is happening, yet if you take a look at any classroom, just walk into any classroom in any school with a sincere teacher there, no two classes of the exactly same subject of the exact same grade would be the same. Every class is different. Why? Because teacher is adapting that thing every microsecond of what she's saying. She's going to look at your faces. Oh, this child is bored. I know he has this problem. Let me excite him with this. Let me tell this story. Let me digress into this a little bit. Technology can point out the best content piece for you and make you sit and watch a 2-minute video or a 10-minute YouTube video for it. But the real-time adaptive content generation, where every second the teacher is adapting to your expressions and your question mark faces, it's unbeatable what teachers can do in a classroom. So I think while yes, technology has come a long way in giving capsules of information in an adaptive way, that real-time mentor-led classroom, which many teachers, and I see, as you go down the chain, as you go to underprivileged institutions, the teachers, they're not for the money, not for the job, they're there for the heart, they're for the real deal, right? And that's where you really see their hearts pouring out. And we've been trying to figure out how do you automate this, and it just amazes us every time we see a teacher teach, how much far we have to go as technologists to actually make that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure with brains like you guys and the dedication that you guys have, I have a lot of hope. Ritu, like we're talking about technology and so many things like technology, information changing at an unprecedented rate, right? Even us, it's so difficult to stay updated with the latest tools, latest software, which is available for the future of work. So how can digital skilling initiatives help in this regard? Different digital skilling initiatives across the country, how can they help in this regard?
They totally can help in this regard, Tanya. And as someone said, I think Sandeep mentioned, if we want our children to start using technology, right? If you want them to be future ready, if you want them to be the future workforce or the workforce of the future for our country, then that first step has to start now, and that is where the entire digitization and particularly becoming a digital economy and be active members of a digital economy comes in. So whether it's about education, whether it's about looking at skills, whether it's about choosing professions which are in the tech space now, really, if you look at our country, we do have a very strong advantage. We have a demographic dividend. 50% of our population is under the age of 25. So if that's the generation that is going to form what the country is, then really what we have and what we have an opportunity for is to create this nation, which is a nation of content creators, which is a nation of job creators and not necessarily job seekers. So if we can start using technology in that space, and continuous upskilling, reskilling, and digitization of skilling, I think that is where that is how it's going to help us. And I also agree what somebody said, in one of the panelists said earlier, is that it's probably a very siloed approach right now, with everybody kind of doing their own thing. At Dell, we believe that technology is there to help you thrive, right? With our social impact, objective of making progress real, we want to really take technology at the grassroots, which is where Aarambh as a program comes in. But then that is just the beginning. That's really just that one step in the entire process. But the larger ecosystem really has to come together to make sure that we are providing the right skilling and the right opportunities for growth to the children that we have who are going to grow into digital citizens of the future for us. And that very rightly, again, going back to the conversation we were having earlier, is about also making sure that our teachers are equally equipped. And I completely agree with with what Rahul said. It's probably not so much about technology replacing a teacher, but technology in the hands of a great teacher can really make a huge social impact.
Amazing. Yeah, for sure. We are 30 minutes in, so I just wanted to inform our attendees, if you want to ask any questions, please do leave them in the Q&A box. Chitra, we'll continue with what we had also discussed, what Ritu had brought up initially about parents, right? So parents can, there is no longer a way to have them as passive parties in the field of, in the period of their kids' education. So how best, how best we can provide for and prepare them better for this? Like, what would be some of the things that are not being done, can be done, or are already being done in your field to help parents prepare better to be more active participants in their kids' education?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always believe that a child's learning and development is a community initiative, right? It's not just in the hands of the teacher, or just it's not the hands of the parent. And we did say, I'm sorry to say this, we work with, like you introduced, we work with over 1,000 schools, and we've seen this lack of trust in many between the stakeholders, right? A parent says, yeah, I'm paying fees, so they better teach my kid. Or the teacher says, I can't do better than this, so you better take care. So there's always this lack of trust. I mean, I may sound very critical here, but I think that's the truth we have seen. And we as a service organization in this space have tried hard to make this community feeling come in for the child, because we all need to participate in different ways. Of course, the teacher's role is different, the parent's role is different, but even like, when a particular lesson is taught, and then we say, can this have an extended learning at home with the stakeholders at home? It's always seen like, that's not my job, or the teacher saying they've spoiled it, right? So I'm glad again. I mean, I think you said it, Tanya. We are all seeing opportunities, because whatever lacuna we have seen, right? This has kind of this COVID phase has zoomed into all those lacuna, and so I think we all need to really pick the threads there. Right now, we see that the parents are literally, and we are in the formative year space, the pre-K to 8, and here the parents in the early years are even forced to sit with the child in screen time, and they are now on one side appreciating. I think I loved when Rahul talked about how much the teacher brings into the energy to the class and with the child. Now they are seeing that, and also we see that the teachers, while striving hard to move and adapt to the new, they are also thrown into an adventure, if I may put it, very in an exciting manner. Yeah. So there is this opportunity where we can now, again, I'm going to my silo thing, I have a big problem with that. We need to see how the roles can evolve, and all the stakeholders can actually look at the child and say, we are here to provide the best for the child's learning and development. And that is where I think the parents also, can come in, and there can be a more, I would say, trust climate, and clear roles when we can carve out for that in this learning space. I think the child is receives the best. So I see a huge scope, and I think, again, we should not miss this opportunity. So even if we are talking about digital learning, I have a problem with the word because I think it puts digital on the spotlight somewhere. Learning kind of, I don't know, it kind of diffuses next to it. But we are talking about digital or technology aiding learning, and we are leveraging on technology to provide the best. I feel that even there, the collaboration can be amazing. I mean, see this panel now. We are all like, coming together through this technology. And I think meeting such wonderful people here, and the participants are able to listen to so many of us and, ask questions. So that collaboration, I think that is where technology is going to play no more that once a term or PTM, or no more that the teacher has to be disappointed that one child's parent never turns up. I think that all those are going to change big time. But just to remind, it's not just about the technology and the opportunity it gives us, the human touch.
Yeah.
How do I bring the high touch there? How do I make it attractive? How do I make these parent-teacher meetings, even if it's just through devices, how am I going to make it relevant and important? And again, taking from what Rahul talked about, that mentorship, coaching, do we see those differences in these words? They are not the one and the same. Yeah. And that is where I think this whole, and I hope it's an Aarambh for all this, going with Ritu's title. I think that's going to be the key.
Yeah, for sure. I think that also makes me think that it's important to talk about the challenges also, which is what I wanted to ask you, Sandeep. What are some of the gaps that exist if we say digital education? What are some of the gaps that exist at the moment? And what can be done if we had to say beyond technology to close these gaps, like government participation, social initiatives? What are a few things? Of course, I know this is like a book that can be written on it, but what are the few things that you could think of?
Yeah, there is a book that can probably be written on it. Much like I mentioned with teacher education, there's a litany of issues. I'll try to talk about three though, right? They're access, comfort, and research, right? And access has been a huge issue, especially for low-income populations. So I work with an organization called Teach for India, and we run a 2-year fellowship where we mostly serve entirely low-income populations, right? So we serve about 32,000 kids. And when schools got shut back in March, we saw these 32,000 kids and their education go into complete disarray, right? And it was probably the starkest I've ever seen it, right? Because on the one hand, I have partners at many high-income private schools, some of the best in the country. Within 24 hours, their classrooms were up on Zoom. Kids were using technology, iPads, and more to start learning. They didn't miss a beat. It was a one-day temporary blimp in their education. Compare that to kids from low-income backgrounds, the kids that we serve. For weeks, people just didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And we actually tried to survey a lot of our kids. In fact, we've surveyed all 32,000 of these kids 3 times now. 65% of them have access to a device, right? Which is actually a larger number than we thought. But out of that 65%, only 30% have access to a device that they can use freely on their own at whatever hours. The others are negotiating with parents. And so what that's meant for us is that's meant that about 17,000 kids out of these 32,000 kids are either struggling with the device or just have no device to depend on. So we have to figure out how to solve the issue of access to hardware. And I think there's a couple of ways to do that. One is, how do we get governments more involved? How do we figure out how to recognize that actually the hardware has the potential to be the new textbook, right? 2 is, though, how do we start to invest parents in hardware, right? There was a study done a couple of years ago that said that parents are more willing from low-income backgrounds to spend on education than they are on health, because they recognize the dividend that it's going to provide for years to come. And there are lots of affordable devices out there. And how do we start to really focus on investing parents into the fact that this has the potential to bridge the digital divide for your kids? And that's going to have to be a big one. So access is a big one. And the second, I think, is comfort, right? Like, I think Chitra mentioned this, and we just have to figure out how to get all of the stakeholders of a child's experience, from the parent to the teacher to influencers and siblings, to be more comfortable with using technology to aid their development, right? Because for secondary kids, like, they can do it on their own. But when you get to 3rd, 4th, fifth, second, first standards,
Yeah.
they've got to be assisted in that. And so how do you basically make sure that the teacher's really comfortable with it? How do you make sure that the parents are really comfortable with it? And the third is the research, right? Like, we've been trying to make this migration to blended and Teach for India for the past 3 months now. We've been scouring through the research. And the truth is that the research on the effectiveness of blended instruction, it's mixed, right?
Okay.
A lot of it's saying that it hasn't been effective. Some of it's saying that it has been effective. And I think when you dig a little bit deeper, what you recognize is that the research is actually very scant. Like, there's not a lot of research out there. And there's not a lot of high quality research out there. And so we've got to figure out how to invest in that. And what's happening right now is, without the research there, especially in the past few months, you've seen this proliferation, this high rise of companies basically coming up to provide technological solutions. But without the research, what's happening is those companies are providing a lot of low quality solutions. And there are some great ones out there. But finding those for a parent or for an educator becomes really hard because of the lack of research. So we've got to figure out how to invest in that. And the final point that I'll make, I think, is just echoing something that Rahul mentioned a few minutes ago. People are everything.
Yeah.
The quality of the teacher really is everything.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize, I think, just as he said, that this can augment, it can supplement, it cannot replace that. Like, great teaching is so much more than the delivery of content.
Yeah.
And I think what technology is doing is providing standardization, it's providing personalization, it's providing AI, it's providing so much. But that's got to be able to augment the teacher. And we, over these past 2 months, I've had the privilege of just getting into a lot of these classrooms of our fellows who are piloting stuff, right? I've seen a fellow in Delhi that's basically figuring out how to say, look, like, I'm going to start using, applications, and I'm going to start using Google Classroom. I'm going to basically use live instruction, but I'm going to supplement that with homework that is personalized for the child using an application like Khan Academy. And that's what a teacher is able to do that really has the right skills. They're able to figure out how to pull these together and then coach where needed. I've got a teacher in Ahmedabad that I just observed 2 weeks ago, right? And what she's doing is every Sunday, she's actually bringing in experts from different fields to come and talk to her kids, because her kids are in a state now where they're saying, look, like, I don't get why I should still be learning. Schools are shut. And so she's bringing in experts every Sunday, like an astronomer, a physicist, a computer technician, to come in and talk about how education was linked to that, how they can use technology. That's what great teachers do. I've got a teacher in Mumbai that I observed a few weeks ago, right, that basically has figured out how to say, she has 120 kids that she has to teach. And technology is supposed to ease that, but what happened was, when it went virtual, she was having to follow up with parents to invest them. She was having to follow up with kids. She couldn't figure out how to do it all. So she went on an internship, and she actually figured out how to select 31 volunteers. She got 700 applications. She got 31 volunteers, and now she has all of these people focusing on how to basically follow up with parents. And that's what great teachers can do. I've got others who basically figured out how to translate, how do you use Google Classroom, or how do you use Khan and Hindi so that parents know how to access it.
Yeah.
But we just need people to figure all of that out, right? Because people are at the heart of all of this. And we've got to remember that we can't circumvent that. We can supplement it, but we can't circumvent it. And so we've got to figure out how to continue investing in the right people and investing in leadership, because it is only in people plus technology that we're going to figure out how to crack this.
Yeah. People plus technology, I think that's a great tagline for this webinar. Rahul, I want to ask, how even Sandeep is saying, we supplement that if we not circumvent that. So when you look at the role of a teacher, there's so many things, right? The teaching, there's innovation, information keeping, data analysis, studying her classroom, being able to figure out this is what is needed with this group, this is what is needed with this group. So what are the, some of the things that you think tech could offload from there and help them add on, rather than so they have a specific set that they are now focusing on, but tech is actually offloading some of that some of that work and making it easier?
No, absolutely. That's a big one. I think ideally you would have one teacher per student dedicated to mentoring that student. Now that's not possible. So you have 50 students with one teacher, sometimes 100 students per teacher.
Yeah.
Now in that case, right, just like a corporate problem, when you have more work and you have less people, what do? You figure out how to delegate. You figure out how to delegate it to someone else. And who is that someone else? Now, in the US, professors have teaching assistants. So they have this concept of how you have the professor teaching the lecture, then you have teaching assistants take care of a lot of the submissions, the smaller doubts, solutions, and so on. Technology can replace a lot of the things that teachers in India do. So teachers, I've seen, if you really break down the amount of time spent, bandwidth on a lot of these things, a large part is, as you rightly said, submissions, is about report card tabulation, the amount of time teachers spend, getting those marks from those papers and into some place, and then tallying all those marks, double checking them, triple checking them, and all of that, right? This kind of reporting, and that too, this is done only once every 3 months or 6 months. But ideally, you would want formative assessments, right? You would want formative assessments every 15 days, every month, where scoring low marks in the formative assessments is not the student's problem, it's the teacher's problem. So it is about, do you understand 33 plus 95? And if the student gets it wrong, the teacher needs to recap what double-digit carry-forward addition is. And knowing those marks of formative assessments, being able to cohort students quickly, knowing that, oh, these children got that wrong, as opposed to sifting through all those papers, I think that can go a long way. And when you come down to, large managed schools, especially in government schools, a large part of teacher time is in reporting upwards. So there's a lot of data collection, there's reports to be filled in and all. And progress is being made with technology to enable data collection on an app, data collection just by a photograph. So I think, as you rightly said, yes, technology can help a lot of things. In fact, what I think teachers do need is some superpower, equivalent of a Tony Stark Iron Man suit. So, suddenly you make teachers powerful such that they can help 10x the number of students that they currently do. And I think that's the least technology can do. Very appropriately said, that's where technology can absolutely help.
That's awesome. Okay, so my last question before I move on to the audience question is for Ritu and Jairaj, and this is usually my favorite question in all webinars, is how, in all interviews, webinar is the constant these days, how one story of change that has always been in your heart. Like, so I was hearing Sandeep and he's saying, okay, this is a fellow in Delhi and this was the fellow in Ahmedabad. And I realized that you guys have so many of these stories because you are working with so many people, great people creating great impact. So if, Ritu, you had to pick out one story of change which has happened because of your work, because of Dellarum's larger work, would you be able to share a story with us?
Sure. I would actually share a story, and that stays really, really close to my heart despite, and there have been numerous stories in the last 4 years of Aarambh's journey. But the story that I want to share today is not the ones which have emerged in the 4 years, but the story that one incident that really propelled us into creating, and starting Aarambh as a process, as a journey. And this is about a small boy. His name is Shubham. And he is a son of a farmer, and he lives in a very small village in Maharashtra. And when we were doing our school contact program, that's how we got to know about him. And this is a very, very bright young boy of about 10 years old. Now must be 14, so this was about 4 years back. And so the parents recognized, the fact, as somebody said, that the parents have to recognize the fact, and parents need to be able to invest. The parents recognized that this boy was very, very bright, and and he had big dreams. He wants to become an IPS officer.
Okay.
And so they invested and they bought him a PC. And the way at back then when we met him 4 years back, the way he would explain how a windmill works, and that's the knowledge that he has been able to get. Probably not so much from what he read in this class, but after class, when he has gone and studied a lot more about it on his PC, and the way he was able to really explain how a windmill works. I don't think when I was 10 years old, I even knew what a windmill was.
Okay.
So, and he would, so he converses in English. He's fairly comfortable with it. His parents don't. And I would love to share that video, with you at some point of time. But when you hear them speak, it's the pride in their eyes, just the fact that here is their boy, and they're pretty sure that, you know, he's bright, he's intelligent, we have made the right investment, and he will be able to create a better future for himself when he grows up. And it's just that innocence of that boy, you know, that those visual memories are so strong, they just stay with me so long. But and they have stayed on for so many years. And so he really explains how a solar system works, and he does that in a very, very elaborative manner, not something that you could probably pick up in a, you know, in a textbook. And he talks about the windmill, and you know, his father relates an incident as to how they once went to the hospital for, you know, for some dentistry work that he needed, and the doctors were all talking in English, and he said, I could not understand anything, but my son, who was sitting right next to me, was, you know, interpreting everything that the doctor was saying. And he said, I was so proud of, you know, this is what my son could do. So it's just that little, you know, that little dream of hope that his parents had, that yes, we have made the right investments, and it will add to his knowledge, and he wants to kind of go and become an IPS officer as he grows up. I think that really propelled us to create a program which really reaches out to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 school students and to their teachers, and hence, you know, kind of empower and equip the teachers. And that's the story of Shubham that just stays very close to me.
That's amazing. This is why it's always my favorite question, because everyone usually goes back to what exactly motivated and inspired them. Jairaj, would you have one story for us?
Sure. Actually, I've written a LinkedIn article on this. It's 2014 when I was building. It was first year of building Convegenius, and I was trying to find what inspires and what our visioning would be. So this is in Chhindwara. It's a small constituency in MP. Close to Nagpur, and the girl's name is Muskan. So I wrote this LinkedIn article called Muskan's Muskan. So it's the smile on the face of the child. She while she was using our solution, it was early days, first year of our organization. So very, very importantly, she said something that when I was asking her about, you know, what her experience and feedback is to use technology. We were using tablets, 7-inch Android devices. She said that when you, indirectly in Hindi, she said, when you inspire the curiosity in one child, you change a family. If you can do that with technology for hundreds of millions of children, you can change the whole country. It's a very simple way of understanding what technology can do. And what we are trying to do, and that curiosity is the important word I want to stress on, because how do you inspire curiosity in a child? And that's what teachers do, right? And that is something that cannot be replaced. It can be improved with technology, but it cannot be replaced. And connecting this to what Rahul was mentioning, I think the game changer in the teachers of tomorrow would be the whole idea of cohorting based on personalization. And how do you give a better experience and create that spark and curiosity in the child by using the teacher's time well, not doing boring Zoom classes. I think most of the questions, to answer the questions, it's about engagement, right? On a platform like Google Meets and Zoom, you are not able to engage well because you're addressing hundreds of children in different settings and different contexts. How do you use technology to give that face time? It need not be 1:1. It could be cohorting based on learning levels. Technology can allow you to set a group automatically of group of 5, a group of 6, and create a custom Zoom class for six children and give them a really good experience by doing cohorting. So I think the possibilities are huge, but the important thing I would come back to is spark the curiosity, because that's the most important part, and learning will happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think that answered the question also that I was going to come to, Jairaj. And most of the questions that I'm seeing are answered. It's about leveraging technology. It's about having a balance between technology and the interpersonal relationships that we have. One of the chats I would really want to read out for you guys also, it's Pinu Josh who writes, after a long time, I'm feeling positive about being a teacher. And on behalf of all of you guys, I would just want to congratulate Pinu and want to wish them super all the best for everything that they're doing. And we want you to continue feeling super positive about being a teacher, because you people are the teachers of tomorrow. You are building our students. You are taking this country to simply greater, newer heights. And we are also amazed and proud. I'm so amazed by the opportunities that you guys saw in all of these days, in all of these issues that we spoke about. So amazed that there are challenges that you're talking about, but also instantly you're talking about solutions. So it has been amazing talking to you all. It has been super inspiring, and I hope it has been the same for everyone who has attended this webinar also. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys soon with more stories. Thank you.